Okay, hello everybody. We have Ameed Faleh from Good Shepherd Collective today with us to talk about the two-state solution or the two-state illusion. Welcome, Ameed.
Hello, thank you for having me. My name is Ameed Faleh. I'm a graduating BA student in social thought, economy, and policy, which is really fancy for political economy and political science. It's technically economy and science, but it's more political economy. Also, minor in urban studies and special practices. I've been with the Gucci Collective over the past, from since early 2024. The Good Shepherd Collective is it's an organization that rejects NGO paradigms and conditional aid given to NGOs and rejects the talking points of the NGO structures. It was founded in 2018, specifically initially to help the community in the South Hebron Hills. Later, it expanded to more general advocacy for Palestine, and in general, it does not abide by you know conditional aid donor politics, of which the two-state solution is prominent. So if you want to tie it to the subject today, there's still hope for a two-state solution among NGOs, which is ludicrous and unrealistic considering everything. So the Good Shepherd Collective aims to build connections, aims to build networks, aims to build, you know, um, meaningful conversations regarding Zionism, Palestine, what Israel is, how Israel functions as a settler colonial ethno state, and in general, it publishes newsletters, it publishes articles about these subjects. It has an amazing data set of which it visualizes, Zionist attacks throughout the region, showing how Israel is threatening the entire region with war, and more specifically, and the attack on the infrastructure, the genocide happening in Gaza, how many lives are lost because too often, there's emphasis either on numbers or on, more personalized lived experiences. But in the Good Shepherd Collective, we try to strike a balance between both, and we think both are equally important because you can have the personalized lived experiences of the people of Gaza. Uh, they talk about the conditions, but when you see the numbers, it's much more staggering. And when you see only the numbers in abstract, you miss the lived experience of the people of Gaza. So it's for us, it's important to strike a balance with both. So we try to do both. And yeah, thank you for having me.
Of course, welcome. It's an honor to have you. Um, for people who
And
for people who don't know so much about the Good Shepherd Collective, we had a previous episode with Cody and Lara as well. About Zionism and anti-Zionism in general. But today we're going to talk about the two-state solution, as there are some recent developments as well. But maybe you could start with like an update on the situation in West Bank, because I mean, everyone's focus obviously and reasonably on Gaza, but the settlements continue in West Bank. The occupation continues in West Bank, like daily violence, constant settler violence. Um, and they also recently passed a declaration. The Knesset, the Israeli parliament, passed a resolution or declaration on full annexation of West Bank. So if you'd like to talk a bit about the general situation in West Bank, we'd appreciate that.
yeah, the general situation in the West Bank hinges on really three pillars. It's economic, it's the counterinsurgency, and is the settlement. All of them are inexorably tied together in a way. So, with regards to economics, the economic situation in the West Bank is bad. When when the genocide started, Israel kicked out upwards of 300,000 to 400,000 Palestinian laborers in 48, um, who contributed large amounts to the economy because of the fact that they were really a bulk in the labor force, and with with the lack of job opportunities in the West Bank, with the lack of any prospects for any sort of economic prosperity, except for a few, um, the situation is dire. There's been a lack of liquidity in the West Bank, primarily because of the Paris Economic Accords, which stipulated that Palestinian banks would sort of give, uh, in layman's terms, Palestinian banks have a quota of, I don't remember the number, a very low number of Israeli shekels that would circulate in the economy, and they would give it to Israeli banks to prevent inflation in a way. But this quota hasn't been updated since 30 years, so it doesn't take into account, uh, you know, uh, higher, higher population numbers, higher spending per capita. Therefore, it doesn't take into account these developments. So what has happened is that there is so much cash in these banks that they cannot give it to the Israeli banks, which prevents people from dealing, for example, paying electricity bills, paying water bills. So they have to resort to debit cards. Really, in the West Bank, debit cards are not widely used. So more and more people are sort of resorting to digital solutions for this. But it doesn't solve the issue of the liquidity in the West Bank. There is money, there is liquidity, but you cannot spend it on like very specific things: gasoline, electricity, water bills, some other necessities, which hinders economic prospects, which are already dwindling. With regards to settlements, ever since the genocide, Israel has sort of used the backdrop of the war on Gaza as a way to sort of increase settlement in the West Bank. So we see large swaths of Area C and Area B, as per Oswald, large swaths of land are being confiscated, and settlements are expanding more and more and more, and in real time. uh, so if you, for example, you haven't been outside of your town for 6 months, and you go outside your town for 6 months, in the like the seventh month, you would noticeably see a settlement expanding, that it has expanded. So it's reaching those proportions whereby it's in real time, happening in real time. It's not very slowly and creepily happening as per before. Large Bedouin communities, large villages are under settler attacks, and some Bedouin communities have been evicted time and time again in the West Bank. With regards to counterinsurgency, I mean, we see what's happening in the north of the West Bank, especially Jenin and Tulkarem, uh, large, large invasions of the refugee camps there, the 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 sort of um, you know, kicking out the residents of Jenin camp and Nur Shemes camp and Tulkarem camp, kicking them out and widening the streets, demolishing buildings. This is all the work of direct counterinsurgency, of which we have upwards of 40 to 50,000 Palestinians in the north of the West that are internally displaced. Um, and the Palestinian Authority, aside from giving, necessary foodstuffs, hygiene kits, stuff like that. It is not doing much to alleviate the situation. It's not presenting solutions. It's not doing anything. And we have to remember that in reality, before the invasions of the northern West Bank refugee camps, there was a PA campaign on them. And this PA campaign works in tandem with the Israeli campaign. It's not a coincidence that right after the PA campaign on Jenin, there was an Israeli campaign on Jenin that demolished the entire camp. Uh, So the point here is that the resistance fighters in these camps, the PA sapped their strength, which allowed for Israel to come in and deliver. I don't want to say the final blow because it's too early to tell how the developments will happen in the north of the West Bank. But it's a very heavy blow to the uh, battalions in the Northwest Bank. And when we say battalions, it's more of a euphemism. It's not actually battalions in modern military sense. Um, so, all these factors we see in the West Bank point towards a very crucial understanding of the fact that Israel's endgame in the West Bank is ethnic cleansing. Israel's endgame is either kicking Palestinians out or making the Palestinians in the West Bank weak and servile and under the Israeli military boot. And with the announcement of really funny stuff, actually, the Hebron Emirate in Hebron. Uh, the Israel is also trying to undermine the PA, of which the PA is a proxy for. People people say that the PA is a subcontractor, but the subcontractor has rights and obligations. It doesn't only have obligations, but the PA has no rights. It has only obligations that it would put. So subcontractor is inaccurate in that sense.
That's a great way to put it. Haven't thought of it that way.
Proxy, yeah, it is a proxy on auxiliary of Israel. Uh, and even then, even with this collaboration, Israel is working towards other solutions that will further atomize the communities of the West Bank. The person who actually proposed the Hebron Emirate, or like the Emirates model. His name is Mordecai Kedar, and he's a clown. I mean, nobody takes the guy seriously, even among Israelis, not taken seriously. But he presented it on the sense that there are no Palestinian, there's no such thing as a Palestinian people. They are atomized on the clan and family level and on the territorial level. So we should plan accordingly and try to dissolve the PA using the Emirates model. And he pointed to the examples of the UAE, desperate Emirates with different issues or shapes that form a political entity. But they're very much territorial in the sense that it is very tribal. He pointed to Kuwait. He pointed to the Gulf Arab states, and there is also, despite the Orientalist, very Orientalist, you know, uh, crux of his talk. There is something to be said about the atomization of the West Bank and how we've been transformed into communities. And I mentioned that on another podcast that uh, the point here is not to validate what Kedar is saying, but there's something to be said about, you know, the North of the West Bank being ethnically cleansed, the camps of the Northern West Bank being ethnically cleansed, and the rest of the West Bank not doing anything about it. There is something about the national identity in Palestine that is eroding under settler colonialism. And if there is nothing to stop this from eroding, then uh, it will be a kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy that yes, there are no Palestinian people, because our umbrella identity that joins us as a people um, is the fact that we're Palestinian. And if we atomize ourselves on the individual level, on the family level, on the extended family level, on the town or city level, there is this fear that we would lose what it means to be Palestinian. And it all goes back to Gaza. It all goes back to Gaza that um, it's been 2 years, and unfortunately there has not been uh, very much an appropriate popular response in the West Bank, and this is partly due to counterinsurgency. Israel and the PA sapped the strength of the population in the West Bank. Through economic warfare, it made them, look after their salaries, of which like 20% of it, 30% of it gets delivered to civil servants of the PA. So not even the full salary, and even the full salary is like just a teeny tiny bit above the minimum wage, which is really the minimum wage. Also, the calculation of the minimum wage, there's something to be said about it, because this doesn't cover lots of necessities. Um, so through that, the West Bank is in a really dire situation, and uh, despite this, the horizon for action is still open, and the horizon for change in the West Bank is still open. And um, you know, throughout this genocide, people are asking really, really urgent questions in the West Bank. That what if we start? What if they cut off X, Y, Z on us? How will we do? And people are trying to think of solutions, and they're trying to think of building something in a really meaningful manner. So there are these thoughts. There are the constructive things happening in the West Bank, but they're not at the pace of which they need to be. And saying this, I'm not exonerating myself or anyone else in the West Bank from the duty to do something. Um, even if even if there's really marginal space, and an increasingly marginal space. In essence, the West Bank is on its way um, towards ethnic cleansing, and there is a lot we can do about it. And I think people are starting to realize that you know uh, dying is not our fate, or being kicked out is not our fate.
Thank you for that. I mean, it is heavy. I mean, the sense of guilt that we all feel in different proportions. I can't imagine how it is for you and people in the West Bank experiencing it so close by to your fellow countrymen and people. So yeah, thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, I mean, Gaza is only it's only an hour's drive away. People in the West Bank think Gaza is way too far, but it's really an hour's drive away. And
Yeah.
you know, in the heyday of the Oslo, of course, the golden age of Oslo, people say like we used to go to Gaza because they had good fish, and we used to eat good fish from Gaza to and fro. Israel built this highway system connecting the West Bank to Gaza, but it closed down during the Second Intifada. Gaza is not far.
No.
Gaza is not far from us, and it's not, and the Achilles heel of the rest of Palestinians thinking Gaza is far is what led us to a point where we think Gaza can bear all the consequences of national liberation, which it does not need to, it does not have to. We also need to bear the consequences of national liberation. It's not only on Gaza. And unfortunately, this goes for all of us. I say this with me being the first guilty person of thinking this way. In that sense, there is an immense amount of guilt, and there is an immense amount of, after this guilt, what should we do? Guilt is not it's not something productive in the abstract. It can be a productive thing, but how can we channel that guilt and that anger and that energy into something productive? I think this is the crucial question right now.
Yeah, and I would like to take that and try to take some of the guilt, at least from you, to us in the West, because it's our tax money that goes to funding Israel, and our media that has been supporting relentlessly a starvation holocaust, our politicians that has been finding different excuses, and as we will talking about illusions of a Palestinian state, which will be just fully cooperative, under the imperial genocidal Zionist entity. So the guilt definitely isn't just yours, and it's unfair to just leave it on you. So we have to take part of that and, as you say, turn it into action, because just guilt isn't helpful. So maybe we can talk about the latest iteration of two-state solution, I'd say propaganda, where France and Saudi Arabia chaired some sort of conference, a UN conference on two-state solution recently, and they finished it up with something called the New York Declaration, which is signed with Brazil, Canada, Egypt, Indonesia, Ireland, Italy, Japan, Jordan, Mexico, Norway, Qatar, Senegal, Spain, Turkey, where I am from, Great Britain, the entire European Union, and the entire League of Arab States. Which, I mean, if you read the document, it's explicitly both siding a Holocaust that is going on right now. With like, we condemn all attacks against civilians by any party, including all acts of terrorism, blah blah. We recall that hostage taking is prohibited under international law, whatever. I mean, by the way, just to be very clear about what the situation right now, all of the hostages, or the so-called hostages in Gaza, are prisoners of war. They are not hostages. They are prisoners of war. So they are only soldiers that are left. All the rest of the civilians have already been traded in the previous negotiations. So and then it's we don't have to go into like details of the document itself, but the whole idea is to put the two-state solution back on stage, while the state they're talking about would be just the Palestinian Authority as it is right now, like a collaborative, servile state that is serving not the Palestinians but the empire and its genocidal entity. So in the media and by like Zionist politicians, it's been framed as like, this is rewarding Hamas for their actions on 7th of October or whatever. We're giving them a state, or you're giving them a state as a reward. While actually what it is doing is it's an attempt to sort of make Abraham Accords span the entire Middle East and give actually Zionists a servile state that will be called Palestine. But I mean, like as a Palestinian in West Bank, what do you think of the two-state solution in general? Why should we be critical about it?
In the abstract, there's no prospect of a Palestinian state alongside Israel. Even if we say, hey, 48 isn't ours, we concede it to Israel. 48, doesn't matter to us. The refugees don't matter to us. All these crucial issues of Palestine that are that people died for and people bled and sweated for, those don't matter to us. Even if we take it in the abstract and say, hey, we want a state in the West Bank. Israel is not going to abandon, especially in the West Bank, its strategic depth. When we say Israel's strategic depth lies in the West Bank, we say that very agricultural land, very much fertile agricultural land. It provides quote unquote security for Israel, because when you take a look at the map, we often think of the West Bank, as an internal line, drawn by someone who knows the geography of Palestine. But in reality, it's just an armistice line between Jordanian forces and Israeli forces. So that's the extent of the West Bank. It's an armistice line. It does not convey anything. It cuts across communities. It shatters social relations that existed in Palestine pre-48. That's the reality of the West Bank. And through this, when you take a look at the map, the West Bank cuts across and it's like a dagger in Israel's heart, in a sense, because if we want to take a look at Tul Karim, for example, Tul Karim and the settlement of Netanya, it's only a 15-minute walk. It's not a 50-minute, but it's a 15-minute walk. So you will be at the edge of the Palestinian coast on the settlement of Netanya if you walk 15 minutes from Tul Karim for if there are no borders, nothing happening. Uh, if we want to take a look at you know Jenin, it's only really an hour at max, a drive from Jenin to the settlement of Afule, or 2 hour drive at the most from Jenin to Nazareth. There is something to be said about the West Bank and its importance to Israel. And this is in the very economic and security. We're not talking about the biblical myths that they have conjured up about the West Bank. And really, the heart of the notion of the Jewish state lies within the West Bank. It doesn't lie within 48. That's the thing. 48 was taken because and was settled first because industrialization and the need for industry for the Zionist settlers, industry and agriculture. So you can't build industry in a very mountainous area such as the West Bank at that time. So they took the Palestinian coast and they settled within the Palestinian coast, and little to no settlements in the West Bank, if there is any, really, in the pre-48 period. So when the likes of Ben Ghafir or Smotrich or any other Zionist settler says that we will not leave the West Bank, it's not only because of these factors, but also because the myth of the Jewish nation and the Jewish state lies within the West Bank. So this is the two-state solution in the abstract. It's not feasible. It's not. In reality, what they're calling for is a demilitarized Palestinian state. There are no mention of settlements. There are no mention of, quote-unquote, final status issues. There is no mention of anything relating to how, a two-state solution would be imposed on Israel, if you want to say imposed. But there's always the insistence on a demilitarized Palestinian state. And
Yeah, I forgot to. Sorry,
yeah,
I forgot to say that they explicitly say after the genocide, or when everything ends, Hamas has to leave all its weapons and will never take part in government or whatever. So it's like, as you say, it's explicit demilitarization. They're asking for explicit demilitarization under ongoing starvation holocaust, which is insane. And as you say, it's I don't know, 40 different points they're making, and 35, 36 of them specifically are about conditions on Palestinians. They don't put any conditions on Israel, almost.
And you have to wonder why this sort of insistence on a demilitarized Palestinian state. A demilitarized Palestinian state really means that Israel should continue its genocide against us, and we won't do anything except we have a seat at the UN, and multiple countries recognize us, so it will make the visa restrictions easier on us. That's the reality of the solution that we're talking about. It's not, and it's very much a conditional two-state solution with regards to Britain. So they're also using it as punishment for Israel. And Israel says we'll continue the genocide. You guys can recognize. You're rewarding terrorism, but we don't care. Reward it all you want. Israel has not done anything concrete to stop these, and it can do a lot. And within
you
that,
mean the UK? You said Israel, but you meant the UK can do a lot of things, a lot of concrete things.
Yeah, no. Yeah. Israel actually can do a lot of concrete things to stop Britain from recognizing Palestine. It's such a danger to them, and it's not a danger to them. Because in reality, what's happening in the West Bank is that there's a reality that there's no state. We have ministries, we have local governments, we have X, Y, Z, but it does not have the very fundamental pillar of sovereignty. whether in the economic, whether in the political, whether in the security. There is no really a Palestinian state to speak of, unless you're taking it from a legalistic approach, which, yeah, I mean, yeah, there is, but the legalistic approach, I think over the past 2 years has proven fruitless to sort of analyze the world.
I mean, in a way, sorry to cut you off, but in a way, it is actually a tool for the empire and the Zionists. Like especially in the West, we have there's this Palestinian state as an entity, and then you have the ambassadors who keep calling Mahmoud Abbas His Excellency and whatnot. And yeah, when the Western politicians, even the lefties, whatever you call them, even who are supposedly pro-Palestinian, they are supposed to interface with Palestinian Authority, like their ambassadors and so forth. So it is a great tool for, I don't know, making the resistance or the opposition in the West also very docile.
Yeah, it's a Vichy France model, really a Vichy France model, because the legitimate French government capitulated to the Germans, to the Nazis, and they said, "We're the legitimate government. We will govern southern France." And the U.S. actually recognized Vichy France. There is the fact that the U.S. recognized and abided by the dictates of the Germans at the very early point of World War II. So what we're talking about here is really a Vichy France model, whereby the people surrendered uh, its own namesake, surrendered Palestinian liberation. Uh, Fatah surrendered its own namesake also, like the Palestinian National Liberation Movement. It surrendered Palestinian National Liberation for really crumbs and privileges here and there, and maybe some vague promises of a state from a couple of countries. But the very fact that Palestinian solidarity in the West and in the global South, um, it all interfaces really with the PA. And when I'm saying this, it does not mean I'm condemning the solidarity efforts in these places, but for example, in South Africa, for example, I had a couple of friends visit South Africa for solidarity work, and they said, like, the South Africans said to us, we don't know who to sort of call when we do Palestinian solidarity stuff. We don't know any Palestinians. The only ones we know are from the embassy, and those from the embassy don't care about us. And in reality, the role of the PA and diplomatic missions, even though in the 70s it enjoyed wide support and held expansive networks of solidarity both in the West and in the global South, it has surrendered all of these networks uh, for really just uh, riches, so to speak. So in that sense, we also have to say that in the West, in everywhere we go, we have to combat the illusion of the two-state solution, because there is no two-state solution, whether you like it or not. So whether you're pro two-state solution or anti two-state solution, I'm personally anti two-state solution. But there is no prospect of a two-state solution happening and abiding by the same old framework of 30 years ago, 40 years ago is fruitless. It's we need to look towards other models of I don't want to say diplomatic leverage, because clearly 2 years have shown that there is no such thing as diplomatic leverage against Israel. Um, but at least a paradigm of which we can express ourselves as both Palestinians and pro-Palestine supporters. And the PA, in all regards, it's on its way out. It's a consensus right now among everyone that the PA it's on its way out. And best case scenario, it will be a government in exile. We have to ask ourselves the question of what happens after the PA is on its way out. What happens? because it faces large financial constraints, it faces large political constraints, it faces lots of constraints that, you know, in reality there is no saving it from unless some miracle happens. You know, it started taking grants and loans from Saudi Arabia to cover basically operational expenses of the health and education sectors. Uh, Clearly, there's a crisis happening within the paradigm of the two-state solution and the PA. And this crisis is also a productive and beneficial crisis that we should exploit to pave our own narrative and, you know, politics. Because, you know, people often, you know, criticize Hamas for abiding by the two-state solution in a vague manner. But in reality, the political options for Hamas are second to none, because the PA has the monopoly, because the PLO has the monopoly on the political representation of Palestinians. Uh, Hamas does not have that monopoly, so it's very constrained in that sense. Uh, so with this horizon of a new reality, a new political reality, may or may not be conducive to us. It's up to debate. There is a need to rethink critically about the two-state solution and think, what has this paradigm gotten us over the past 30 years? How have we benefited from this paradigm, if at all? If we have benefited from X, Y, Z, then we also have not benefited in, you know, other things. So there should be a critical assessment of the two-state solution, both as a paradigm and as a discourse that masks collaboration with Israel.
Exactly. And I mean, with that, um, especially the last sentence, that it masks collaboration with Israel, I think that's very crucial to understand for us in the West, especially because our politicians actually use it exactly for that. They use every single time we talk about Palestine, they say, "Oh, but we support the two-state solution," instead of saying, "Well, we actually support the Zionist genocide." Uh, which is what they actually mean by their actions and by using this as a mask, as you say. Um, so I really appreciate like your perspective as a Palestinian about the issue, and for us in the West, especially, we need to reevaluate any politician, any media figure saying, "Oh, but I support the two-state solution." Well, what they mean is they support the genocide. That's what it
Mm-hmm.
is. If we can sort of, I mean, you alluded to it a bit with the PA hopefully being on its way out. But like I've seen a clip of United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres, who's been truly terrible. Actually, like he's done nothing to stop the genocide, other than some stupid remarks like this one. The only framework rooted in international law is the two-state solution, which is again like he's putting it as the only solution, only viable solution. But to challenge that, what other solution is there, and like what should we work for?
I mean, I have no answer to that because I don't want to impose an answer. But in reality, you know, we should think deeply about the pros and cons of every political solution we advocate for. I'm not here to give answers easy because there are no easy answers to anything in the world. Uh, but straying away from a paradigm that has proven to be a mask for collaboration, I think it's important. We can argue day and night about what's next and what's the best political solution for Palestine. But in reality, the only good political solution lies within decolonization, complete and full decolonization. The treatment of Palestinians as human beings with full rights and responsibilities, the restoration of refugees, you know, the very key pillars of Palestine need to be solved and need to be atoned for. And justice must be served. In what manner will justice will be served? that is up for us to debate, both privately and publicly. But there is no way that after this genocide will happen, that there is any prospect of any Palestinian coexisting with Israel. Israel, we read about, I heard it from a friend, we read about Israel in the abstract, we read about settler colonialism in the abstract, we read about genocide in the abstract, but when we're actually faced with it, it's a completely different reality that words cannot give meaning to. And in that sense, any solution to Palestine, any political solution to Palestine must be based on not the air-conditioned office of PLO officials, but in what the people want.
Yeah, thank you very much for that. I mean, we talked about for 40 minutes now, but we covered a lot actually already. So to turn it into a call to action for us in the solidarity movement, trying to help, what do you expect from us? What would you want us to do? I mean, it's a bit silly to put that on you as well, like that responsibility. We have to figure out ourselves from our own contexts, how to help and resist, how to stop our governments be complicit in the Holocaust of Palestinians, but to ground us, to sort of help guide us. If you have any sort of suggestions or I don't know, any recommendations for us to like do this, not do this, do that, but like, I don't know, guide us a bit if you can. And if you can't, I respect that as well, because as it should be, the responsibilities on us. But yeah.
I have nothing in particular to advise for, but there is a very crucial thing that solidarity is not Palestine stickers. It's not watermelon emojis. It's not these things. They're nice things, I guess. But real solidarity means confronting people. Real solidarity means taking a risk in your personal and professional life. Because there's no meaningful action that can be taken without a percentage, low or high, of risk. And in that sense, the solidarity movement in the West needs to realize this, that it's not a time for sort of Palestine stickers. It's not a time for making Palestinian dishes. It's time for action, real action to happen, and concrete stuff to happen on the ground. It's not a time for a 2-hour demonstration that you can go home and feel better about. It's more meaningful than that, and it should be. And we expect better. We definitely expect better.
Yeah, and you deserve better as well. It's not just expectation, because, as you say, we need to be ready to sacrifice more and do sacrifice more. There are. Last week I did an episode with some solidarity activists doing a hunger strike. They've been doing it for almost a month, actually. It's a way of showing solidarity. Of course, they're doing it in an organized fashion, which people, if they are considering it, they should do it in an organized fashion, absolutely. But like, the idea is that we haven't, so far in 2 years, we have refrained from real sacrifice, and that amounts up to complicity after a while, actually. So, thank you, Ameed. It was a heavy but very good conversation. Is there anything else you want to pick up or if you're happy with this, we can round it up.
I'm extremely happy with the conversation. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. And people should definitely go check out the Good Shepherd Collective. Ameed is a great writer. You should definitely check his articles. They're incisive, they're funny, but great. I mean, absolutely. That's actually how I found you. Like with, I think it was the article on. I don't remember the title of it, but it was like, "What do I do with the state?" Or
yeah. I don't want a two states. I don't want a state, and I never did.
Yeah, exactly. People. I mean, if nothing else, people should check that one out, and then they will be hooked, anyways. So, thank you very much, and say hi to your colleagues, your comrades, and people should again go check Good Shepherd out. Support them. They need donations for the invaluable work they're doing. Also, support mutual aid. Support the Samir project, for example, if you can. If you want a bit more organized way of getting help into Gaza. But more importantly, organize and do something to change the political environment so that our government's complicity ends. That's what I can say. Thank you very much, Ameed. Take care of yourself.
Thank you.